I'm an experimental visual artist. And what that means for me is that I use traditional materials. I use also non-traditional materials, but it's in the way that I work. So the way that I work is very experimental. So it's less about the outcome. It's about the process of doing it. I'm a self-taught artist. I came to art after I had various different careers, which I'm glad to have done, because I feel like that helped me really hone in what my voice and what my passion is. You were talking about passion and finding your passion. And I was just talking with a friend about it last night. And sometimes you have to be willing to be open and like dip your toe into a bunch of things, right?
Right.
So everything that I did in the past, which I won't bore you with, led me to this place where I got to be comfortable with doing the experimentation part, right? I'm also founding a gallery called Esperanto Gallery and Studio. So right now it's functioning out of my studio and in virtual space. Just before the pandemic hit, I was trying to solidify some actual space. And that just didn't go well, but, you know, like all things, you know, turned out for the best anyway, because that would have been a challenge right now. I created Esperanto because I'm very passionate about creating a more expansive and inclusive language around art. So I want to connect more creatives with the collectors, with people who connect to art. And what I often found was that there was this language, you know, that in the fine art world or in a certain art world that made it difficult and inaccessible to a lot of people. And then there's also, you know, other markets where there's different types of art. So I wanted to be inclusive. I wanted to expand that language, expand that community to be more inclusive of different artists, of different people who love art, you know, art lovers, art collectors. And yeah, so that's where where I'm going with.
Voy a bajar, te vas a quedar solo aquí.
Hi.
No, te estoy diciendo que me voy a bajar y te vas a quedar solo. Te estoy advirtiendo porque ya voy a bajar, voy a hacer comida. Así que ven.
Well, we've all been there, right? On these Zoom calls.
Yeah, it's all good. Okay,
Somebody wants to jump in to your Zoom call, right? No matter what, even if you live alone, it's a pet.
Well, it's funny because my daughter, she'll always jump in.
You see the little head.
Yeah.
My partner in Esperanto, Helen, who is here, I just can't see her, who's here and has been involved with the Tech Effect. Also, I love Zoom calling her because I see her little son's head pop up, and then I can say hi to him. So basically that's why I've started Esperanto. I have my own personal practice. I have my own philosophies around that, but I also really want to connect more creators and collectors, because that's what I have found has worked for me. So I'm very active on social media. I do a lot of work through word of mouth, and I found that there are a lot of people who really want to collect art, who want to purchase art, who want to really connect with the artist. And when they do, then they really find that they have this, I don't want to keep saying connection, but they have this fusion with a piece, with an outcome, and with the artist, and they're willing to support them.
So you said that you have, you kind of have a style in how you create. So could you like talk about that? Like, because you said you were self-taught. So what does that look like? How do you create? How do you come up with ideas?
Very, very, very messy.
Okay.
No, so for me, my practice is really fused in a lot of color. Vasily Kandinsky was a very influential artist and philosopher in my life. And so my practice is all about sort of distilling things down to color. And so because of that, I'm always, in touch with this sort of force. And most artists will tell you that if they're doing this from a place of true love, that there is like this compulsive part to it. And so you work through that, like you act almost like a conduit. So that's what I go with. I don't sketch things out. I have literally thousands of images in my head. Whatever is the ideas that stick, I kind of go with. And so my practice is very vibrant, very colorful, very textural. I don't want to say haptic without sounding like a fine art snob, but what that really, yeah. So what haptic means is it's another sensation. So it's touch, right? So I made a lot of my pieces to be touched because when I was a little kid, the thing that I wanted to do, and you actually see this, you'll notice if you ever go to galleries or museums or art shows, the artists in the room are the people who are right up against the piece. So they're looking at the piece. How is this made?
Right.
What was the brush stroke like? What kind of materials did they use? So that is the artist. And when I was young, I wanted to touch and I wanted to see and feel. And so I've made my pieces, I mean, they'll have a certain amount of wear and tear, but that are, more durable and strong and not precious, right? So for me, my practice and the process of it is what brings the artistic, I would say, statement or oeuvre, like that is what I do. That is what I do to get to that place where I create, right?
Okay, dope.
Does that make sense? Or
yeah, that makes sense. A
lot of people, they'll talk about influences, and I have many, and they'll talk about styles, and I have many, but I think really for me, if I boil down my practice, it's in the process. It's how I create, right?
Okay, so somebody comes to you, they want a piece for their office, their place. Like, what does that look like? Do they give you direction, or you just kind of come up with something based on the inspiration of like what they're trying to create? Like, how does that work? Like, how does working with you work?
Working with me is a dream.
Of course.
No, I think one of the benefits that I have to coming to art, like not through OCAD or not through an art school and not through that vein, which is not necessarily a bad thing or good thing. It's just my personal feeling, is that I have a more understanding, like my background is in psychology and criminology. I have an understanding in how people function, right? I don't have all the answers, but I do have like more experience with people. So I do a lot of commissioned work and I love it. Some artists don't, right? Because they have their vision. So when people come to me, they usually have an awareness of my work, right? A connection with how I do work or me or a piece that they've seen. And then we have a chat. So I go into their homes or their spaces or their business and I go in and I ask them what they like and what is meaningful to them and what they want to see in their space. And then I work within my own practice, right? So if someone comes and tells me, I want a really hyper-realist portrait of Kareem in my office because he inspires me, that ain't my thing, right? And I have a whole roster of artists who can do that kind of work well and beautifully. And so this is also where Esperanto came from, because people would come to me and they'd be like, oh, I love, what you do, or and I want this, which is a big sort of leap from what I like doing and I do. And when I was emerging, I might have taken on some of those jobs to see, oh, okay, it's a job. I'm functioning as an artist. I should do this. And then I started to realize, well, that's not what I love. That's not what brings me joy. And so I started to develop an artist, like with the tech effect, one of the genius parts of that is you develop a community. And so more so than even building on the skills, right? Like it's great. Right. You get the digital skills, you know the new platforms, the marketing techniques, you see what people are doing. Super. But the really invaluable part, which is, the same vein for artists, is that you connect with other people. And those other people will bring you jobs, experiences, learning opportunities. And those are the people that will help your career grow, right? So networking is invaluable. Like it's invaluable what you're doing and everybody here who's shown up, because those are the connections that help you build your skills, your career. Those are the checks and balances that help you kind of manage. So for me, like Esperanto came organically out of my ability to connect with people, right? Whether on social media, word of mouth, through the commission process, through art fairs or exhibits or whatever. And like hearing, okay, they really love landscape, or they really love monochromatic type of work, which like someone like Helen does, or they really love, hyper realist type you know, portraits. Someone like Patricia does that, right?
Okay.
And so you can connect these people and they will do the same for you, right? So somebody will say, oh, I really want something energetic and fun and, you know, vibrant. I want something different. I want it to be very abstract. And they'll say, oh, well, that's Stacey, right? And so that's where you get that sort of learning and the connection and the building of your actual career. So for me, I tapped into that quickly. And so the thing about doing, it's any kind of client base, or, you know, like you all are probably in a similar situation, that when you tap into that, when you say, you know what, it is in my bag, but I know Helen can do that for you, then you engender a certain amount of trust. And with that trust, they remember that. So when they do go, like for their home, they love monochromatic, or they love max, like really sort of group of 7, you know, expressionist, or they really want, you know, a certain thing for their own space, but then they go to their office and they say, oh, you know, like a huge abstract with vibrant colors would be so what I need. And they'll come back to you, right?
Right. So talk about like how things are now, because you can't go into anybody's houses. I'm not sure if you've been to your gallery, if you've been able to like get inside and create there. But what does art look like now? What are the commissions looking like? What are you know, people doing in terms of like virtual art shows? Like, how are you seeing things change?
So for me, so being in this studio, it isn't really an option just because of everything that I have going on. I do go, you know, a couple times a week. Unfortunately, my studio right now is about 25 minutes away, which is a bit of a challenge right now, as everybody knows, managing all your different priorities. When I got back from Dallas, I was in fact sick. So probably not the COVID, but, you know, I did a lot of the self-isolating and quarantine. So there was a chunk of time I couldn't work since the quarantine went in, or ISO, or self-isolation. So I, you know, when I was able, I did bring some things home. I'm sitting now in my office, which is my kitchen office.
Okay.
So you make it work. I do have things that I have here. Fortunately for me, in a sense, I was planning to be traveling all of April. So I was supposed to be in South America, and right now, actually, I would have been in Paris. But this is really cool here too. This is cool here too. But yeah, so I had planned a lot of my commission work to roll out through May. So I'm in a fortunate position right now. So the commissions that I have, I usually take them for the year and not overwhelm myself, because I really like to focus on them. Have been staggered throughout the year, and I think that there won't be much disruption to them. Like I do have some issue getting some material, but as as things start to open up, it should be okay. What that looks like in the future, I don't know. But I think most artists like pivot, right? So we have to. This is one of the benefits of knowing creatives and learning from creatives, is that you often see how quickly they can pivot and how quickly they can shift and start following the trends that way. So for example, I mean, I had started this before actually the pandemic hit, was that I missed, because of my commission work, I do work in a certain way. It's very layered, it's large. It doesn't lend well to like a time-lapse video, let's say. And people were missing that. I used to do some time-lapse videos. I enjoyed that, short, like smaller pieces and what have you. And so because you can't really film the way that I work on a lot of the commissions. Sometimes people don't want to see. Sometimes I don't want them to see. Sometimes they don't want everybody else to see what they're getting.
Right.
So I missed the freedom that I had as an emerging artist of just kind of playing around. So I started this thing, Today's Treat, where I filmed a small time lapse, and I usually set it for about an hour, and I create a piece on whatever I can find, canvas, paper bags, a canvas or something. And I have a set price, and Helen and I set up in my virtual store, a set price. And no matter what I create, if I happen to pull out a large canvas or a small canvas or anything, It's the same price, it's shipped anywhere into the world, just to get my sort of juices flowing in that sense, just to get affordable art to people, and to also create content for my Instagram, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are the kind of shifts you have to make naturally, right?
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned Instagram, and I'm like, damn, Stacey is like heavy on IG.
Yeah,
She's like
I enjoy it.
heavily
I
active.
enjoy the
Yeah.
IG. Yeah.
So talk to me about that. Like how much of is it more like personal enjoyment, and how much of it has turned into like cool connections or potential business, or helped you grow your business over time?
Yeah, so I have this discussion with many people often, right? Because they're like, oh, you're always on Instagram. It is an excellent tool for me to connect with people. I have made friendships, connections. I've expanded that artist community so exponentially beyond what I could have even imagined, because I'm a connector. Okay, so I'll explain this. So I do enjoy Instagram through my connections, but if someone told me, hey, you could do all of that, all of what you're doing, in another way, I'd be off it in a second.
Right.
It's not that I don't like the connection or some of the facets. I do think that it's, you know, there is a little bit of a time suck. It is a bit of that curated sort of thing that we're just sort of getting the same aesthetic over and over, and it's changing our palettes, right?
Right.
So for me, I'm not hating on it, because I have made lots of connections from it. I've done lots of business through it. I do enjoy it. I think you have to look at it like you would being in this format, or you would going for drinks at 5 o'clock, or coffee or tea or whatever, as a networking opportunity. So the people that approach it in that way are successful. The people who are looking at it at like, okay, this is the aesthetic. I'm going to be a lifestyle blogger. I'm going to have this aesthetic. And this is what I want. I want the paid partnerships. I want I want this kind of, persona. That's it. But you have to be very cautious about becoming the persona. So what we build also builds us. So many of you are like digital media strategists, right? And I hope you all know Marshall McLuhan, who is the media theorist from Toronto and from Canada. And if you don't, look up The Medium is the Message. And so what he said is that the message that we put out is also the message, like the medium is also the message. And we see that now, right? We've created these tools, and the tools are also structuring the way that we do work. We're changing our aesthetic to fit that mold on Instagram. You can look at that, and you have to be cautious as a creator that of what you're putting out is like what is authentically you,
right,
and what is curated. Because I'm not going to lie and say, it's not, we all curate everything on Instagram, right? There's parts of my life I don't show because I choose. There's parts of my life I do show because I choose. And I find, I'm going to admit that those things spike up my interest. Like I train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You don't know how many people, how many art sort of collectors have sparked the interest because we have that shared connection.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's super important, especially with how the algorithms work. It's like what you put into it, what you curate, that you're going to see more of that. So whether that's positive or negative, you kind of have that control. We have a message. We have a question from Verinda. What challenges did you face when you started your own practice? Did you manage it along with a full-time job? What was it like?
Okay, so good question. I had a unique situation where I was able to leave my employer with a bit of a package. So that was my incentive to be like, okay, let me do this. Let me try this and see how it goes. I did not have a full-time job and have to manage an emerging career, like an emerging art practice. So my background is in public relations. The job that I left, I have criminology and law enforcement and so forth. But so I did a lot of, consulting work that happened sort of organically and through some feelers. And it became a lot of social media management, right? Because that was sort of coming up at the time, right? So my practice, like my professional practice, is probably nearing the 10th year now. Oh my gosh. So at that time, this was really kind of emerging, and because I knew the sort of public relations skills and the writing skills, I was doing that a little bit part-time. But it is a challenge, and you will find this as entrepreneurs. Some of you may be, or artists or creative, there are always going to be challenges. It's like a choice of challenges, though, I think, right? I think you could be struggling all day for challenges and stresses that you hate. Like people think, okay, yeah, I'm taking pictures in my studio, I show my bum, I do this, it's all fun and games in there. No. It's, there are challenges to being an art. There's challenges to sitting in front of a canvas and trying to make it work. There's challenges to managing people. You do manage people as an independent artist. You manage your clients, you manage your, the people in your life, like not the contractors, but people you need stuff from. You manage other artists, you manage curators and shows, and you're managing things. So people think, oh, you just get to go and play. And I do, but the challenges that I have, I've chosen. And that's the difference. So if you can embrace that discomfort, uncertainty, and especially like this is, one of my points in my talk was how to channel your inner creative. And the reason that I suggest that is because it's the creatives now who are used to living in this degree of uncertainty, instability, and, to be quite honest, fear. Right? We're used to living there. So now it's like everybody else is like, oh, how do I do that? Right? And when you explore that, and you look towards the artists as these record keepers, as these sort of emotional litmus tests of like, how the world is feeling, it can help you, right? It can help you channel that living with discomfort.
Yeah, for sure. We have a few minutes left, but we have another question from Lily.
For sure.
Liliana. When starting your own practice as an entrepreneur, you have to learn to wear many different hats: sales, operations, marketing, accounting. Which one did you find the most challenging? And maybe how did you overcome it?
Oh, accounting. Nobody wants to deal with the money, right? Like, unless I guess you're in finance, and then I bow my hat to you for sure. I think that for me, what was really beneficial was learning that I could not do everything myself. And I think most of the people probably in this room are here because they are type A, whatever that means, or go-getters, or used to doing things on your own. And the best thing that you can do is align yourself with people who can help you. So as much as you can afford to, get in line with people who can help you to do those things, so that you can get back to doing what you love. Like the best thing in my life, I'll be honest with you, was hooking up with Helen, right?
Yeah.
Because, so my practice is my practice, right? I can do that. But for the business side and the things, like I can just tell her, oh, I want this, this, and this. And she has her skill set that aligns with that. So together we can align this way, right? And, I learned that, okay, I don't like accounting. I don't like I did very well in accounting, just as a side note, in school, right? I did some business courses. I did really well. I just don't like it. I don't. And so I found a really great guy. He does my accounting. I ask him questions, and he answers them, and I don't have to think about it, right? Like I don't have to think, well, why can't I get this? I used to struggle with those things. Like if I don't know something, sometimes now I just go find that person. And I think that's the part that the letting go of not having to do everything yourself, right? Shout out to Helen, man. I don't know where I've been. Yeah, Helen, everybody, Helen.
Yeah, Helen's all up in the comments.
Hi guys, I know it's so loud back here, so I'm just have my thing on mute.
But Liliana said, love that advice. So
Thanks,
she wanted to ask
Liliana.
a question.
I hope that helped you.
So yeah, so I think we're pretty much out of time, but maybe one last word of advice for either creatives or entrepreneurs, and then also what are you working on? What's next for you?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm going to leave you with one thing. Okay. So in this time, there is going to be unprecedented ingenuity, like never seen before, post-pandemic, during pandemic. And at the same time, there will be unprecedented levels of ingenuity. So what you need to do, whether you're creative or not, is you need to let that sink in and cultivate your inner creative. So that's part of what I was going to say today too. Find one thing or small things, or message me and I will give you a host of little tricks and tips to spark that creative part of you. But you need to be looking at the artists and not sitting back and waiting for them to pave the way, seeing where they're going and building on that, because that is what's gonna, there's no old world order to go back to. Like this is all gonna be shifted, right? So that's what you need to do. For me, I also had to pivot. So, we're still working on the gallery, but looking at our virtual space. We're looking at offline things. I'm still looking at securing actual physical space for when that time comes. But I think it's also important as a creative to take this opportunity to rest and reflect, and to really not just go in a bunch of different directions, to feel like grounded in where I am and where I want to go with the business and so forth, right?
All right, cool.
Yeah.
And then so Helen posted the links to your websites.
Thank you, Helen.
In the chat. So everybody, please check out Stacey. Hit her up on IG. She's super creative. I'm assuming that's one of your pieces behind you. But yeah, check out.
There's a couple. And you know, the beautiful thing about being friends with creative people is they make you creative presence. And Helen made me this. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? So yeah, I am just surrounded by a lot of creativity, and that's, kind of how I've cultivated things, but you can too. You can too.
Okay, cool. And you'll stick around for the networking portion so that some people could have a chance to
sure.
connect with you, ask some questions.
Yeah, I'm so excited to see Ryan's talk as well. Like there's no kinder person than Ryan. And I just have this like love-hate relationship with him at night, late on his Eat Famous Instagram, right? Where you're just like scrolling through and you're salivating and having this Pavlovian response. And I'm like, Ryan, you're such a nice guy, but you're like killing my diet right now, right?
Yeah.
I apologize.
And sorry, actually, Stacey, Daryl in the group, he wanted to get a connect on your accountant as well. So
for sure.
I'll let him connect with you directly. You can also message privately within the chat, guys. So if you want to message somebody one-on-one direct, just see the drop-down menu there. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. Of course,
yeah. If anybody has any questions, Stacey at esperantogallery.com. I'll try to put it in, or maybe Helen can type it up. Feel free to shoot me, and I mean, I'm no expert, but feel free to shoot me an email, and I can link you up to some of the resources that I've had, right?
Sounds good. All right, thanks, Stacey.
Thank you.
All right. Cool. Okay, so next we'll jump right into my guy Ryan. Eat Famous. What's going on, bro?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you, man. It's like a long overdue convo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could have been in person, but this will have to do. But yeah, just give everybody, for those who don't know you, for those who haven't checked you out yet, just tell them what's going on with your brand right now, with you personally, and then we'll start the convo from there.
Cool. So the trouble with like following an authentic, just cool, laid back artist like Stacey is like the business nerd in me comes out because I've got slides. So I apologize in advance for that. But and they actually jump into kind of like, they start with even my informal introduction is a little formal, but can I share my screen? Can I do that?
Yeah, go ahead, man. Go
for
it. Yeah, no problem, man.
Cool. All right.
Just tell me if you see the controls and everything.
Yeah, I see it.
Drinking. What are you drinking over there, Ryan?
Mount Gay rum.
All right.
Mount Gay rum, straight from Barbados. That's where my folks are from. So, yeah. Shout out, Corwin. So everyone can see my screen. Yeah. Thumbs up. Okay, cool. So who am I? My name is Ryan Hinkson. I run an Instagram account called Eat Famous. It has been regarded as probably one of the most popular destinations for food on Instagram. Just north of a 250,000 followers, 276 to be exact. See that business nerd again. And basically what I do is I work with restaurants and brands on creating content and managing social media for them. So who pays me? Because it is a job. So brands like Warritos, Google, American Express. I've had a long time relationship with Amex, where I've rolled out dozens and dozens of pieces of content for them, whether it's things that I share on my account or content for them to share on their social channels. They've been a great partner. It's been kind of a blessing to be able to transition from not just working with smaller restaurants, which I love, but bigger brands. Because to quote Jay, you know, we overcharge them for what they did to the, to the Cold Crush. So like having corporate partners kind of allows you to relax a little when you're working with, you know, people who might need a hand, who may not have the budget to do so with you as well. But again, to you know, it's something that's really, really fun when you get to partner with people who have kind of influenced, you know, your buying decisions throughout your life. So like I said, brands like Warritos, Google, I've worked with Sam Adams, I've created content.